All right, here's the last episode in this week's deal deep dive with some on-market deals. We started off with a duplex and worked our way up. And so in a lot of these videos and a lot of these podcasts I like to put out, I want to talk about, if someone was a first-time home buyer to a first-time investor, what property should they look at? What do they look at for scaling? And what does that mean to scale? How do you increase the equity? How do you increase the value? Do you just wait for appreciation to build? Whatever it might be, but then I show you how to do a 1031 exchange from one property to the next and really scale up your portfolio. This next property is great either for a first or and for an investor who's been building their portfolio. The great thing about that is you really start to learn about what it takes, what you need to do, just the ins and outs. When you start from that duplex or that single family home or condo, whatever it might be, and you scale up your portfolio to this 13 unit complex in Sacramento, you learn so much about what you need to do. And if you don't have that time and you don't want to do it yourself, you can obviously hire property managers, someone like us or someone like, just someone else out there. But this property is great. And so if you're looking for just a way to replace your income, maybe you got some inheritance from a family member, whatever it might be, really, I like to look at these as, hey, I am an investor who is scaling up my portfolio by increasing the rents and increasing the values, doing a 1031 exchange or a cash out refinance when rates improve to a property like this. So, this property is great. This is in Sacramento. This is actually listed at a good price, which, to be honest, it's kind of rare to see nowadays. People still think they can get a 5% cap rate on a not renovated property when interest rates are, over 6.8% or 6.5%, just depends on the week and the day and the qualifying individual. But this one's great and it's listed at a great price. So the address is 601 10th Street in Sacramento, listed for $1,550,000. Really close to, and they do highlight that in some of the listing description. It's close to a lot of hospitals. So if you look at, if I'm an investor and I'm looking at how much can I increase rent in my unit, I got to look at, what's the job market in my area? Who are the higher income earners who can afford my three times, right? If I say, hey, to rent out one of my apartment units or my duplex or whatever it might be, you have to make three times a monthly rent as a qualifying individual or couple or whatever it might be. What are the occupations that support that in the area? And hospital jobs definitely support that, especially as you look to increase the rents by 3 or 4%, maybe even 5%. Probably want to do 5%, but 3 to 4% every single year, depending on how much value you are adding to the property, of course. Right. But the nice thing about this is it is close to a lot of places. They're advertising that there probably was about a 2% vacancy rate per the seller. You can always check that and just double check that. But the gross operating income is $170,000 with a net operating income of $124,864 per year. So for a lot of people watching the video, this is where you start to look at replacing your income. For some of your high income earners, it's just a great asset to add on top of your portfolio. And maybe long term, when you've increased the rents by 3% every single year, then you might be looking at the next 5 or 6 years, a great retirement on top of your retirement. The nice thing about this is the location. It's kind of, I mean, it looks somewhat renovated, move-in ready, right? It's not the most amazing place, so maybe it has some room for improvements. It does have a laundry facility, so if you can find a way to put in-unit laundry, obviously that's going to be a pretty big expense, but at the same time, it's going to add a ton of value to the property. A net operating income of 124,000 versus a gross operating income of 170,000. Maybe there's room for you to improve that depending on the maintenance costs. You can always look at the profit and loss statement to kind of see where are those expenses going, how do you improve that to operate more efficiently. A lot of this just depends on you as the investor or the person, sorry, the owner. But if you're more of a passive investor who's using a property management company, you want to hear the practical things that they're going to do in order to dramatically improve that net operating income to gross operating income ratio. The nice thing about this, it's being sold at a 7.65 cap rate. So if interest rates drop, roughly to about, 6.15. Then you're looking at a 1.25 debt service coverage ratio where you can buy this property, have it cash flowing and qualify just off the income that the property is producing. So maybe negotiate the price down, maybe get a credit to reduce the interest rate or reduce the interest rate yourself, or just buy this property. Knowing that you're somewhat breaking even, keep some money in reserves to protect yourself from any repairs because you're going to need a good amount in reserves. What I would also look at when you're evaluating this deal is what did the previous owner keep in reserves? What did they use in their reserves throughout a yearly basis for repairs or for unexpected costs? That way you get an idea, do I need to keep 30% in reserves? Do I need to keep 3 months in reserves, 6 months in reserves? Whatever it might be. Because if really it was a 2%, vacancy rate, then I want to look at, okay, well, how often did they increase? Is that along with a 3% rent increase? Like, what was that? What are in some of the numbers and some of the reports we're going to get during our inspection period? What is the reason why, in my opinion, or your opinion, or in a guesstimation as to why it only had a 2% vacancy rate? Because that's really good. Might just be it's hard to find properties like this in this area. Um, a down payment on a property like this, if you kept the price where it's at, 20% down, minimum down payment is $310,000 per month. So if you, or sorry, 310,000 down. So we take our triplex that we bought or our duplex, we get to a point where we've increased the value in the rents and therefore increased the value in the property so that we have about 310,000, right? When I'm building these portfolios with people, if you're a first-time investor, we make the game plan of how quickly do you want to get to, if this is your end goal and this replaces your income, how quickly can we get to this? That way, that was why we looked at the triplex in Roseville, because there was a greater likelihood that you can get in there, renovate the units, really market that place and rent it out for what it's truly worth once you have it a little more renovated. But you can dramatically increase the value to a point where you can do a 1031 exchange, have enough money for this property, and maybe a little extra that you can keep in reserves just in case there's maintenance costs. Because when I buy this property, it's not just, hey, do I have $310,000 as a down payment? Do I have enough in reserves to handle any unexpected maintenance costs? That's how we operate. Once you get to more than 4 units, you're really looking at it a little bit more as a business, which is why they don't really consider these loans traditional residential mortgages. They are somewhat commercial loans. So I want to make sure that I have reserves, one, to handle any vacancies and any gaps between my monthly payment and how much profit I'm producing. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I can handle any unexpected maintenance costs. Past that, if I wanted to scale even past this property, then I want to look at, hey, I need to set even more aside. So let's say, when this is not an offering, but when we put together real estate funds, we look at, okay, how much excess do we need to have over those reserves for renovating units? That way we know, hey, I can get, let's just say each one of these units were being rented out. I didn't do the math. Sorry for this video. Let's say $1,500 per month, $1,600 per month. How do I get it more than that? And I have to look at what's going to be the cost to renovate the units. How well are they renovated now? How do we make it so that we can really rent this out and make not luxury living, because we still want to make it affordable to a wider range of people, but we want to make it just a little bit more upscale, which also means less maintenance requests because when things are renovated and they're newer, they're going to have less issues. And to an extent, not all the time, but to an extent they will. But also, I can show the value. I'm allowed to then increase, or it's easier for me to increase the rents at a faster rate or higher rate because people are able to justify it more. They look at all the other apartments that are available or units that are available in the area and they see, okay, well, they might be increasing my rent by 4% every single year, but all these other units are not renovated like mine, so I'm okay with that. I also have to look at, of course, the job market and are there salary increases that support my rental increase every single year? Because if there are salary increases that support my rental increases every year, then I know it's easier to increase rents, right? If minimum wage does not, or not minimum wage, median household income, average household income, if that does not increase at the same rate or higher, then I want to increase rents, then I'm going to have more vacancy rates because I'm increasing rent too much. So this is a great deal, though. I think there's a lot of upside potential, but I think even just looking at this from, a long term, hey, I'm just going to do a 3% increase. I'm going to make some renovations. This is definitely going to replace a lot of people's income either now or 3 to 5 years from now, and you can retire a little bit earlier, even if you are a higher income earner, or if you're really trying to scale to even more units, then of course we can talk about that. But I would talk about that more one-on-one with me. So feel free to reach out and schedule a time. So we'll see you next week on just another deep dive into 5 other deals. Once again, starting from the basics, working up to a property like this. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you.